profit is a myth, balance sheet is truth, and cash flow is supreme.
No, now I absolutely understand why you use the word essential, because this essential industry or the essential goods that are used are huge.
To do that consistently, day on day, month on month, year on year, is a huge thing in industry. The printer is the most abused IT product in an organization.
So in the US, you've heard of the company Enron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They
delayed the inevitable. We just converted this phenomena of reduced printing as a marketing strategy for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode of Capital Insights, we are absolutely thrilled to have a distinguished guest with us. Someone whose career has been nothing short of remarkable.
Our guest today is none other than Mr. Sandeep Kumar Goyal, a financial wizard with over 2 decades of experience in the corporate world. He currently holds the esteemed position of CFO and Executive Director at WeP Solutions Private Limited. Welcome to the show.
He spearheads financial transformation, provides strategic leadership, and is instrumental in capital raising for the organization, making him a pivotal figure in the company's growth and success. His journey in the corporate realm is a testament to his expertise and dedication. Mr. Goyal's impressive educational background includes a chartered accountant designation from ICAI, a bachelor's degree in commerce with a focus on accounts from Osmania University.
With a career spanning over 2 decades, Mr. Goyal has not only established himself as a financial luminary, but has also significantly contributed to the growth and development of the companies he's always been a part of. His wealth of experience and expertise makes him an ideal guest to share insights into financial strategies and leadership in our ever-evolving business landscape and the world. Without further ado, let's dive into the enlightening convo with Mr. Goyal himself.
Thank you for kind words and for my introduction.
Of course.
I'm thrilled to be part of this exchange of thoughts that you would have expected from me. I'm sure I would be able to meet your expectations in what you want to hear from me.
Definitely, sir.
Sure. First question. The best financial advice you've ever received?
To be frank, actually over the last 20 years of my working experience with this organization, I've received quite a few good advices. But if you want me to single out one particular one, I think which I have been told time and again, is give the bad news early. I'll explain you what I mean by that. Organizations typically try to cover up, hide what's going to happen, what's bad. Probably an example of that would be, you see something which is a penalty or a notice or something. You keep on hiding, trying to cover it up and drag it forever. Our organization, and I think the people that I have worked with, have learned with, have given us a wonderful advice that don't hide that. Just share the bad advice early. That makes life easier and it helps you to take right actions at the right time rather than delaying it when it becomes very difficult for you to manage what's the problem that you had at hand. So there are quite a few like that. So I think this is one of the best. And to add another one, I would say, I think in financial sense, it's really, really important to be ethical. Many a times I have been told to compromise by the government or for that matter any other place where you would like to try to do the shortcut. But as an organization, we have always believed that ethics are far more important, and that's one of the best financial advice I would say, because that helps you to be above board, compliant, and as well as very, very transparent.
Definitely. I mean, there were a few examples in the US. You've heard of the company Enron, right?
Yeah.
They
delayed the inevitable.
Exactly. Yeah. Many people lost jobs. Stock crashed down.
So we that's the best advice I would say for an organization. As a financial person, I've learned from my early days of career.
Okay.
So, sir, you have over 2 decades of experience in finance, which is incredible. So, my question to you is, when you were in your grade 11th and 12th, what was your ideology about saving? Was it that saving is better, investment is better? To now, after 2 decades of experience, how is that your experience in corporate impacted that ideology that I should invest or I should save, respectively?
It's difficult, Abhiraj. To be frank, I'll tell you, at the time when I was in 11th or 12th, probably I would have never thought that I would have completed my chartered accountancy itself. The idea of saving was alien because we had little means. But fundamentally, when I started my career, I started earning myself. I realized saving is very critical. And obviously, saving doesn't mean putting it in some FD or anything. We have studied finance, so we realized that we need to divide our savings into different forms of long term, short term, and obviously different instruments are available for that. So obviously we, as a individual, I've always thought that saving is for investment. Saving is for bad times too. So obviously you need to have all types of savings done. One is for your long term life, career, or whether you have anything, but also for sometimes you need to have savings made up for unknown circumstances, unforeseen situations, like it happened for many people during the pandemic time. Like people went out of jobs, did not have job for 6 months, so saving was critical at that time. If they had a 6 month saving pool, they would have survived that tough time.
Definitely.
Many people didn't have that. So obviously saving has come for different people from different perspectives.
So as I understand from your words that it is equally important to diversify into savings and investment.
Yeah.
Being only an investment freak isn't the right approach because of the unexpected economic conditions that the world could go through anytime.
Absolutely. So that's, nobody would ever say that you will have to invest in one particular asset class. Obviously you need to have investments in liquid, investments in long-term and illiquid forms. Like you also have people investing in land, which is just not liquid at all. But you also have investments made in FDs, which are probably much more short-term need than long-term need. You have equity investments for different purposes, for your probably growth-related, your long-term retirement-related expenditure. So keeping all that in mind, obviously you need to have a diversified investment and savings plan. Otherwise, it's really, really tough to have a plain vanilla plan for going through your entire life cycle. It's tough because you work for almost 40 years. So you can't have a single style of investment or saving for that entire life.
Yeah, so the way you use investment and saving, you kind of use them interchangeably. So do you hold actual cash in your bank, or how do you think about that? Okay.
I do hold cash in bank because you do not know. So I would say FDs are cash in bank in today's world, because gone are the days where you had to take a FD to a bank to get it encashed. Today, bulk of the fixed deposits are online. So I would say that the FDs are equivalent of cash today. So that's the form of investment. I do keep some amount of investments in that and savings in that. But much more depending on my age, because currently I am much more in the 40s. So there's a rule which generally people say 100 minus your age should be your ratio of equity investments, but I have actually never followed that. So I've always thought that it depends on at that point of time where you are positioned. If you have flexibility of 6 months pool for your emergency needs, then the balance can be invested in whatever form you wish to have. So for every individual, the rule applies differently as per me. So, and it also helps that we are slightly informed. Being a finance person myself, there are a lot of people who do not know about this. So they follow typical rules. They take a financial advisor help. But for me, I think that's how it has been.
So you talked about FD particularly. So my biggest doubt when it comes to FDs, recently I've been engaged in a couple of financial courses where they have taught me things like, not in a very direct format, but things like, so FD gives you a certain amount of return in a couple of years, but then taking account into inflation, right? When inflation is increasing and the amount of return they're going to give you, either it's going to nullify your money or deplete your money. Okay. So how's your take on that? If that is the real case, then why are people investing in FDs?
So there are two to three reasons why people invest in FDs. One is sense of security is the biggest aspect.
Okay.
If you see, fixed deposits gives you a sense of security, especially for the people who are in the fag end of their careers and their retirement and senior citizens, because it gives them the flexibility to draw cash at any point of time. Okay, and it also gives that nothing can go wrong. The capital is preserved. At least the capital is preserved. You may not get a return, but the capital is preserved. So that's a risk-averse mindset. Second reason why FDs are still prevalent is, if you see, largely FDs today are a tool for short-term savings. So in the short term, inflation doesn't count too much. In reality, if you see, inflation is running at around 6 to 7%.
Absolutely, yes.
In a range, yeah. FDs give you around 7 to 8% nominal. So it covers your inflation, okay, in short term. Obviously, if you look at it over a period of 5 years to 6 years, nowadays people don't invest for 5 years in FDs. If you have a time investment horizon of 5 years, I would say people generally don't prefer FDs. The people who would prefer FDs of 5 years would be people who think that at the end of 5 years probably would not be working. and they do not want to risk the
Absolutely.
capital of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So the capital risk is a big factor for them. And typically Indian mindset is that we do not like capital erosion. We don't mind the interest being less or high, but we just don't feel comfortable with the negative return. They don't take into consideration the inflation aspect much, at least the senior citizen portion of it.
So, since you talked to me about FDs and brilliantly answered that question, my next forward question that comes to my mind is, on that note, what is the worst financial advice you have ever received in an economy like India?
Okay, that's also one other thing which I have been taught by the superiors that I have learned with from. There is a saying, always it was told to me, or rather we all believe, I'm sure you also, that a company which makes much more profits, that drives the performance of that organization. So a company which is highly profitable is a very good organization. Okay, so just invest in a company where probably you will get it's making huge amount of profits. Okay, so I frankly believed it initially. Okay, I realized that it was the worst advice that somebody from a finance sector can tell somebody. And a person like me who understood finance slightly better than anyone else probably accepted that as an advice. Because in reality, I have understood one thing now, that profit is a myth, balance sheet is truth, and cash flow is supreme. So even though you're not making profits, okay, your organization should be making cash flows. Okay, and if you're making profits and if you don't make cash flows, it's just waste. Okay, much more important, what do we see in an organization when we invest in an organization? We try to typically see what's the profit of that organization, what's the P&L of that organization. We seldom go and see the balance sheet of the organization.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we rarely would ever see the cash flow statement of the organization.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically that is the worst advice that I had received in my career from an investment or from a financial perspective, that when you evaluate an organization, just look at the profit of the organization. So I think with time I have matured enough to understand that these are all cash flow is supreme. So if cash flow is there, then the organization will definitely make profit, if not today, tomorrow.
That's great. So you did mention how balance sheet doesn't always indicate whether it's a good stock to invest in. And it shows like a bunch of assets that the company owns and liabilities.
Balance sheet shows the real assets.
Exactly.
Sorry, P&L doesn't show the real worth of an organization. Balance sheet does.
Okay. Then in that case, what is a fake indicator of wealth, or like what is one asset, if you had to describe, that doesn't really add on to your wealth but it normally is?
Oh, okay. I would rather answer that much more from a personal perspective, or rather individual's perspective. Is that when somebody is trying to superficially show you something which actually is not required for himself. That to my mind tries to show, we always believe that there are needs, wants and luxuries.
Absolutely.
We all need to have a mix of all
definitely.
the three. Obviously every individual aspires to be having all higher mix of luxuries probably. Okay, so we graduate from wants to needs to probably luxuries, and when an individual tries to spend only on luxuries, okay, and in reality he's actually struggling for his needs and wants, that actually is my real indicator of that a person is trying to fake up. And other thing is that if a person is much more impulsive in decision making based on ego.
Absolutely.
Okay, he takes decision because just take an example that the opposite person has bought a new car, buy a new car and try to buy a higher version of that car, even though you don't need it. It's actually nothing, even though he may be able to afford it, that's a different issue, but that actually is a real indicator. He may be able to afford it today, but certainly he will not be able to afford it tomorrow.
So, as per what I understand from your words is that societal pressure and the biases in the society also play a role?
I would say it's in the mindset.
It's in the mindset.
There is no society which is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. You will have individuals of different types, and there are a lot of people who can afford a lot of things. There are a lot of people who actually can buy a lot of things, but they still don't buy. Don't they have societal pressure? Like they can also afford to buy. Like you can have so many people. I'm sure that you would have heard about an example of Dr. Velumani. I'm not sure whether you've heard about Thyrocare as an organization which recently sold off to Farmeasy. Okay, he doesn't even own a house, and you know what is his net worth? More than 10,000 crores.
Wow.
Okay, they still stay in a rented house. So it's not that they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Okay, but probably people are there who still resist those societal pressures. And I'm not saying there are quite a few examples of that nature. And I'm sure I've worked in Wipro as an organization. So you must have heard about Mr. Premji. Mr. Premji is actually one of the, I would say, leaders who actually made us believe that reality is that you don't have to show off. When he was active managing director of that company, we were told by our seniors, because I have not worked closely when he was the active person. I was working in an arm of Wipro. So he never traveled by business class. He traveled by economy class. Okay. His employees sometimes used to travel in business class, but he never traveled in business class. That's precisely the reason why it sets an example for others.
Yeah.
And nobody can say that you can't afford. He personally can afford himself. The organization, more than the organization, he personally can afford, but he never. So it's all in the mindset as per me. Actually, they know societal pressures sometimes play a role, but it all depends on the individual how he or she takes.
So, sir, on that note, would want to share a fun incident with you. So, lately I just read a Economics Time article. It was about a Marwari person, right? How a Marwari would earn somewhere around 70 lakhs and then buy 10 lakhs car, whereas a basic employee of any XYZ company who's earning probably 30% of that amount would spend 25% just buying a car or a house.
So there is something called, I'll just give an example of how we are as an organization. I was trying to relate to when you said, the startup world.
Yeah.
Right? The startup world, hardly any company makes money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Correct? So it's not a context of this, but just reality is that they burn money to earn. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas we are all taught for first earn and then burn. Okay. So that is a mindset that people should have. An organization which is much more established, much more process oriented will end up doing that, and then that same applies to an individual. If you take more than what you can chew, you're supposed to definitely have problems.
Okay.
So you will end up, if not today, definitely tomorrow, you'll end up into trouble. So as you rightly said, if somebody has a 70 lakh income and he buys a 10 lakh car, it's certainly worth it. And if somebody has a 25 lakh income and he still buys a 15 lakh car today. And that's the reality of today's world. So, and that is all driven by, again, as you rightly mentioned, societal pressures, but it all again depends on individual mindsets.
Okay.
Sir, what are one of the most key economic challenges that you see for your industry in the upcoming years?
See, our industry, the industry that we operate as WeP Solutions, is the industry where we are pioneers in office printing solutions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, you see, worldwide, everybody would believe that printing is falling. Okay. With a lot of automation coming up and everything, industry-wide, everywhere, you will see yourself that, like the fact that you are having your iPads in your hand rather than having a questionnaire probably else. You would have talked about printing is coming down. Everybody perceives that printing is coming down. And that's a challenge that we cope up with. Okay, but across India, if you see, the size of the market is so big. We have realized it over the last 20 years. We are in this industry for 20 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, it has transformed. We were a dot matrix printer company. I'm not sure whether you understand dot matrix, but it's the impact printing technology.
Okay.
Okay. It migrated to inkjet. Now it's the high-end office printing, which is in laser printing industry.
Right.
Okay. So we realized this. We knew that over a period of time, printing will definitely fall. So the need for printing will reduce. So how do we ensure that we cover this base of ours? So we said, what's the next logical conclusion? The next logical conclusion of this is basically automation. So we said, let's try to do something around the document. Okay, and while we were working on printing services and the printing solutions, we also started an activity which is called as document management, which we invested in last 5 to 7 years, thinking that this is what is the next logical evolution of the printing would be. Basically, if something is getting printed today, would get into an online mode tomorrow. So we went into the automation of the documents management through that online mode. Secondly, we also innovated around the printing solutions. We said, gone are the days of routine printing solution, where a person buys the printer and he does the entire management, the headache of managing the printer and everything. We made printing a hassle-free solution for him by ensuring all his headache is transferred to us,
Definitely.
including the obsolescence of printing technology. Okay. In fact, we converted this into an opportunity for us. Like every organization wanted to show off that we are reducing printing. But how do they do it? They don't have a measurable metric. So we said, we will measure for you how much you print. And we will ensure that you print less every year. Okay. How do we do that? We ensured that we brought in solutions and softwares around it, where a person knows that X, Y, Z printed 100 pages, 200 pages, 300 pages. And once you have a metric which is around that, and it says that this is the volume that I have printed, or he has printed, or she has printed, automatically the organization started putting pressure on those individuals to reduce printing. And that's how efficiencies get driven. So it served both purposes for us, where probably customers who were looking for solutions for managing the printing came to us, and also we just converted this phenomena of reduced printing as a marketing strategy for ourselves, and we ensured that the customers reduce printing. What's wrong for it? What's wrong? As long as the printing they do is on our device, what's the problem? We will just ensure that they print less, no problem.
Okay.
Sir, one question that I really have here is, today we know AI for two things, to which the credit goes to Shri Narendra Modi ji. AI, America and India, AI, artificial intelligence. So how are you trying to integrate AI into the printing world?
Okay. I would say we are still way behind in this industry, at least for the services that we provide in the AI. But we have a lot of fragmented versions of it already in place in our processes. Like the printing industry, actually, as I told you, is now much more rather than a device-driven, a software-driven industry.
Right.
A device is only a conduit. Largely, what is happening is customers are trying to understand why do people print. Okay, one is a regulatory requirement, where probably you need to print these documents and keep it for storage and probably give it to the customer. Like in a bank, you need a bank statement to be given.
Definitely, yes.
Okay? One is a regulatory need. There is no compromise on that. Secondly, can you avoid the unnecessary printing? Now, for that, we have developed solutions around it, and I don't know whether you can call it as AI. Okay, we said you can refuse, or rather, you can deny printing for documents of this type, like GIF images. In many offices, bulk of the printing used to happen for the images and the color images for their home purposes. Okay, we made solutions around it where we could deploy the software on the device, and the devices actually started denying printing of those.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, you will find that there are many a times you give a print, you don't go and collect it, you forget it.
Yeah.
Because shared printing concept. Nowadays, nobody has a desk printing. It's a shared printing concept. So what we did, we developed a solution around it, and we said, unless you go to the device and enter a pin, the printout doesn't come. Okay. Now, if you forget to pick it up, okay, it's not printed at all. So if you actually needed that print, you will go to the device, enter your pin, then only the printout will come. So your wastage is reduced, okay, as well as your unnecessary printing is reduced. So like this, in small fragmented forms, already the industry is having this. But to say, I think the major impact of AI and BC will come in our business, where we are serving the customers in decision-making models.
Okay.
Not at the customer side, but absolutely at our side, where we will be able to proactively measure the customer needs. and meet their requirements much better using decision making models. Like I'll just give a small example of to you. Is we have a pan India presence. So we have one of the large banks who has across India printing happening in all the branches. Now the critical thing is the consumable needs to be there to print. Now with this device and the AI solution that we have developed, or the small technology that we can develop around it, we will be able to predict when the consumption will get over and proactively ensure that the consumable is replenished.
Wow.
So his downtime is virtually brought to zero.
So now that makes the difference, or the whole difference out there.
Yes. So for us, it's a revenue generating thing, because if the printer is down, a device is down for even 2 days, it's not printing, it doesn't give me revenue. At the same time, the customer is never out of the consumable, and his business is never impacted. And I'm talking about not the metro cities, I'm talking about the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities in India where the branches are operating. Okay. So how would you get that?
So sir, on that note, I would want to ask you, how does your revenue model work? What do I mean by that? I mean, so how are your charges taken on for that particular printing? So is it on that particular set of papers that are printed? Is it on that particular software which is used for these many number of hours? How does your revenue model potentially work?
Our revenue model is typically based on per click.
Okay.
Number of outputs, number of prints, copies or scans that you make, it is per click, it is what is charged to them. These are all the means, the softwares around it are all the means for ensuring that the clicks are very smooth. That's all. But the measurable output is that it's per click, per output, you can say, in whatever form. And we have different ways of measuring the clicks. We have softwares installed on the devices which help us getting the clicks printed during the period in that.
Okay. Then moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is a different topic, of course. You mentioned earlier how compliance and like in accounting and all that is very important for a firm. So what insights can you provide regarding the relationship between economic growth and corporate financial performance, especially in context of sustainable practices?
Sir, before you start, just to add on to his question, you had mentioned about reducing paper wastage or using prints for their own personal use, right? So if paper wastage is increasing, practically the corporate sustainable goal is practically not achieved for that particular company. So this question would be in context to that.
So I think there are two ways to answer this question. First, from the customer's perspective, we definitely provide them a sustainable practice. But if you see, we are actually in a business which is actually promoting printing. Obviously, our revenues are dependent on printing, and obviously we want printing to grow and printing to happen. But how do we grow that? We ensure that the customers print less. Okay, that's our model, because we want to promote very clearly sustainable practices in long run, because printing is, in our opinion, inevitable in some form or the other. Now, how do we ensure that we print only what is needed and we do not waste, is what our endeavor is. We are working towards only that solution to ensure that sustainable. Just to answer your question, Ajay, on the relationship between economic growth and the corporate financial performance. When the economy grows, okay, typically all segments grow. Like corporates grow, everybody grows. But the reverse is not true. It is not necessary that when the corporate performance is growing, economic performance should grow.
Wow.
Okay. I see.
Because in reality, economy is a factor of lot of other variables. For example, India is still a predominantly agrarian economy. Though corporates might be growing significantly, your corporate profits will be up. That doesn't mean if agriculture doesn't grow, India doesn't grow. Okay. So while an economy grows, everybody, the entire ecosystem grows. But when the corporate performance grows, ideally economy should grow, as long as the growth is inclusive. A corporate performance does not represent an inclusive growth. It is certainly a good parameter to measure whether the company is whether the country is in the right direction. but it doesn't necessarily say that the every sector of the economy is doing well.
Okay, I see.
Okay, that's what I would say.
So my next question driving on business identity. So how do you identify a business and manage its potential risks that are particularly affecting your financial performance? You did mention about the potential risks that you see in the upcoming years, but how are you going to manage those risks in context to the financial performance?
Okay, that's a good question to ask. Actually, if you see, as an organization, we have an established risk management process. And I'm sure a lot of organizations which are established organizations for quite some time and have got a legacy of good businesses have that. Now, what we as a management committee do is that we try to evaluate all the potential risks, whether they must have happened or not, that's not the important point. But do they have the possibility of happening? And we segment it, like any other industry, we segment it into market risk, we segment it into geographical risk, we segment it into political risks and all those factors. We also have a unique nature of risk, which is customer concentration.
Okay.
Printing, if you see, is much more in the sectors where regulatory requirement is substantial.
Definitely.
And I would say the banking, financial, insurance sector, BFSI sector as it is known as, is one of the biggest contributors of our revenue. Okay. And that's a huge risk that we carry, that this segment is almost concentrating roughly around 60 to 70% of our revenue. So if something were to happen to this sector, it poses a risk for us. So like this, we have identified quite a few risks. And one of the risks, as I've already told you, that printing itself as a nomenclature goes as a perception is supposed to be going down every year on year. But what we have done is that in terms of few actions that we have taken in terms of mitigating those risks is, one is we have identified diversification strategies.
Okay.
We are not dependent on one particular business. We have started 3 to 4 new business lines around it.
Wow.
Okay, one is the established business which is generating cash for us. Using that cash, we've invested into 3 to 4 futuristic business lines which are actually complementing the digital space. Okay, ensuring that if something were to happen to printing, logical evolution would be into this space. Okay, that is one. Secondly, we've also converted the printing into a service model. Okay. Typically, why today, if an organization offers our estimators, if you see your printing, if it is 100 on a measure, is going to 99, 98 year on year. So you can say the overall printing is falling. But what we have done is that the service model in that printing is just today 30%. The balance 70%, people still buy the devices and use it. So we said, let's convert this into a service model. While that 100 might become 99, I'll ensure that this 30 becomes 40. So as long as I am in this space of 30, my growth can never get stopped. Okay. So our objective is to ensure that we expand in the space of services while printing goes down. And by the time we reach that saturation point, the congruity point between the services and the buying, we would be diversified enough to take care of the risks.
That makes sense. Then, so talking about services, during COVID-19, services weren't affected as much as products, right? So in printing, did COVID-19 affect your business at all? And if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, it did affect. Okay. We are in office printing.
Yeah.
So people don't come to office, they don't print. Okay. So it was a major setback for us. And we actually never anticipated this. Nobody would have ever anticipated that.
No one would have ever.
No one would have ever thought about lockdown kind of.
Definitely.
We heard the word lockdown itself for the first time probably. Okay. But the good part, I would say, of the period, how we got saved during that period was that, as I told you, our predominant business portion comes from BFSI sector, and that was the essential services. Okay, and the essential services were allowed to operate during that period. It acted both as a saving grace and as a challenge. Our revenues were not that badly impacted because of that, because this segment contributed the major revenue, and while the printing came down in that segment too, but it was there. But it also created a huge challenge in ensuring the services are up. We are highly people intensive because we need to provide material, we need to provide consumables, we need to provide devices across India.
Yeah.
And to ensure that the essential services are running, we need to ensure that the entire setup is running.
Perfect.
And you cannot have one person working in isolation. You need to have a central warehouse working, you need to have a regional warehouse working, you need to have a head office functioning. So it was a challenge to ensure that the services are up and running. And everybody was you can't expect when your leaders are at home, you can't expect your field engineer to be working in the field for ensuring delivery of consumables. So we ensured that as an organization, to motivate the entire team, at least 2 of the leaders were always at office.
Wow.
During times when even the lockdown was running, with the permission of authorities across, ensuring that us customers who are in essential services were serviced appropriately. We had a tough time for 3 months, after which our team learned how to ensure the services are up and running, and I think it was a learning experience for all of us.
So you used the term essentials, which was still running or which were allowed to run during the COVID time. What are exactly essentials as per your company that was still allowed to run? And
the banking industry had to run. Because there's no choice. Without the transfer of funds, how would the companies, people would have worked? All the banks were running. Manufacturing industries. There were loads of manufacturing industries who are our customers, who probably had dependency on. You had so many companies converting from regular manufacturing to manufacturing for oxygen cylinders, manufacturing for masks, manufacturing for sanitizers. Okay, how would you ensure that their printing is happening? Okay, and you had medical devices. You had to manufacture medical devices, right? And you had to supply medical devices. Their pharma hospitals had to run. Hospitals have a huge amount of printing. Okay, their reports had to be printed. How would you have got the reports printed? So all these essential services which were characterized by the government that time had an element of support that was required from industry which is of even printing in nature.
No, now I absolutely understand why you use the word essential, because this essential industry or the essential goods that are used are huge.
Yeah.
Because during COVID, as far as I remember, there was a shortage of beds every single time during the first and the second wave.
Correct.
Right. So definitely that is one point which is not to be undermined. When I use the word undermine, my next question that I want to shoot up is that how are you balancing the right point between risk management and growth at WeP Solutions?
I would say, to be frank, we are a risk-averse organization. Okay. Rather, we were a risk-averse organization. We've always been in a comfortable setup, okay, an established business. Okay. We have not taken bold bets earlier. As a organization, we have always believed in growing steadily rather than taking risks earlier. But we have realized in the last, I would say, 5 years or so, that it is essential for an organization when it is generating cash and having a steady business to take some risks, obviously calculated risks, and ensure growth. Okay. Because, and the pandemic taught us that badly. Okay, we, what to the credit of the organization strategy, the pandemic did not hurt us badly because we were never a risk-taking organization.
Yeah.
We were a very far more steady organization. But it also made us realize that unless we have, and we would have taken a risk, probably we would have had an alternate at that time. We would have done much better. So what we did in the last 4-5 years is that we have identified some areas where we potentially believe that we should invest, and we have started investing and taking risks to ensure the growth impetus is there in the system. But what happens is, if you are in an organization which is far more steadier, the opportunities for employees to grow gets limited. You will not get the right talent. You will not get exciting talent. So we realized all those challenges and ensured that we take up some bold bets. And we did those. And I am sure we will find those giving us fruits in the next couple of years or so.
So, in the US specifically, or around the world, during COVID-19, the stock market took a hit. Everything took a hit. But the AI sector did tend to grow quite a bit. So, leading on to the next question, what are some key performance indicators? Like in the economy, what do you see that could be a business opportunity or could help WeP grow?
Okay, to be in our organization, okay, I would be much more aligned towards what probably we see as the key performance indicators for our organization to grow is how are we able to add new customers. Okay, a good amount of our business comes from our existing clients. Okay. Now, if our ability to get and attract new customers is good, it shows the confidence that the existing customers have. Because typically in any organization, your existing customers are always your best reference. Okay, so if an organization is able to add new customers, period on period, quarter on quarter, month on month, whatever metric you want to use, I think that is one of the best indicators. Second, I think as I have already told you earlier, cash flow. Okay, whether it is for the economy, whether it is for an individual, whether it is for an organization, if your cash flow is positive, then you are bound to succeed. Okay, your profitability doesn't matter, your cash flows matter. Okay. And by cash flows, I mean cash flow from operations, okay? Not cash flow from borrowings. Operating cash flow. So if you see these 2-3 indicators where you are able to add customers, and if you're able to add customers, your revenue is bound to grow. No doubt about it. If you're able to add customers, I'm not talking about your existing customers. Then the third metric that I would look at any organization is your customer retention. Okay, if your customers are deserting you, sooner than later you will fall.
Yeah.
So if you're able to retain customers, apart from adding, you're bound to grow. It boils down to these 2-3 overall macro indicators for any organization that we would try to track. There are a lot of individual metrics which every businesses will have definitely.
Yeah.
In all of our businesses, we have different metrics that we use. Those are much more micro and I would say focused. But on an organizational perspective, these 2-3 metrics is what I personally look at: retention, addition, and cash flow.
Okay.
Sir, in your industry, what sets you apart? We understood how your industry works and how you work, right, primarily. And what are the future challenges you see? How you plan to counter the financial performance? What are those couple of things that you do that any other competitor is not doing or cannot do?
Oh, there's nothing that the competition can never do. Obviously, competition will sooner or later catch up with you. What you can always do is you can be the first mover. Our ability, and I think we did it in a good time, is to establish a service network. If you see what sets us apart from the competition that we have is that we have a network pan-India. We are a pan-India company and we service roughly 2,500 locations in India, which no other company can service in hardware.
Okay.
And we have got a network of engineers, got a network of partners, we got a network of employees who are spread across India, ensuring that the customer service is made up and running. We deliver SLAs to 99% to our customers. So SLAs stand for service level agreement.
Okay.
Where what we commit to the customer, we deliver it 99% times.
Okay.
To do that consistently, day on day, month on month, year on year is a huge thing in industry. Okay, I do not know whether you are aware. The printer is the most abused IT product in an organization.
Why do you say that, sir?
Okay, I'll explain that. How often would you bang your PC if it is not working?
Rarely.
Not at all.
Never. But if the printout is not coming, you will definitely bang the printer.
Of course.
It is. It is a truth.
You will try to close the tray. You will try to do something or the other. It's the most abused IT product. To ensure such a product is getting serviced at 99% of the times across the years is something which we have achieved. And that's why customers come back to us. Third, I think we have created an environment and an ecosystem of brand agnostic setup. What I mean by that is, if you see our competition in this space are the OEMs. OEMs are original equipment manufacturers, basically the manufacturers.
Manufacturers, okay.
Like you have the big brands, okay, whether it is Ricoh, Canons or the others.
Yeah.
Now, we are a brand agnostic organization. We do not have any particular affinity to a brand. We just give what the customer needs. Okay, the customer need is paramount rather than the brand. So we give multiple brands. Our ability to service and meet the customer requirements of multiple brands is not at all available across India with any other brand, with any other organization. So that's, I think, is one of the biggest factors for our success.
Okay. So then to end off, I have one last question. How has WeP Solutions, or if at all, it's made any mergers or any strategic business partnerships?
In this space, Ajay, if you see, there are hardly any players to have an acquisition strategy in India.
Absolutely, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But what we have forged in the last 3 to 4 years are strategic partnerships with OEMs. Okay, 2019 we signed up with world's leader Ricoh.
Okay.
Okay, which is a global organization for devices.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a relationship with them as their national distributors. We provide solutions and printing around those devices, including services. And very recently, in the September month, we have signed up with another global leader who is entering the Indian market now, Fujifilm. Okay. These two players have signed up with us with a pure expectation. Obviously, they have studied us. They have realized what our strengths are. They have done a huge amount of evaluation of what our strengths and weaknesses are. And based on that, they have decided that we are probably the best bet to enter the India market. And Indian market obviously is growing. So all these companies which are world leaders in their respective territories wanting to enter into India. So they have chosen us as their partners, and we have tried to take strategic relationships with all of them to take our business as well as their business forward.
Of course.
So here strategic alliance with manufacturers is playing a role rather than what we see in different industries where they're doing let's say acquisitions or mergers with another likely competitor or the company.
Yeah, in this you're right, but in this industry it is very difficult because laser industry, there is hardly any new manufacturer coming up worldwide. Okay, there are quite a few players, and restricted players will operate in this industry for quite some time in future also. Okay, the only opportunity that will come is, will that be made in India? Like you had an iPhone getting made in India now.
Yeah.
All these devices are precision devices. Printing is a highly precision driven manufacturing that is largely done in China, Japan and Singapore. So potential is there for those to be moved to India for manufacturing, and we have a huge setup of manufacturing in our organization to take up in future as and when it comes.
On that note, sir, it was great talking to you.
Same here.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Goyal. It's been a privilege to have you on the show, and your invaluable insights have undoubtedly shed light on those doubts that we have had for long. Your extensive experience and impressive accomplishments serve as inspiration to our audience and to us firstly. We look forward to keep this journey going and keep the pool of knowledge even vast. Thank you for being here once again on the Capital Insights podcast. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. It was a very good experience.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.